Okay, let's get stuck in. Keith Small, welcome to the Your PT pod.
Thank you for having me, James. I've been looking forward to this since you said, right, we're going to do these podcasts. I thought, yes, really excited. So thank you for having me. Really looking forward to it.
It's an absolute honour. It's great to have you in the chair today, Keith. And we have known each other for quite some time in the industry.
Yeah, 2010, I want to say.
You know what, that's bang on. I was thinking over the weekend. So 2010 we first met in what was the first iteration of YMSL.
That's it.
Back in the day.
Yep.
And here we are now.
I know. Just think, wonderful studio space here where we first met, Simply Gym, pre-sale suite with a building site and a window trying to sell thousands of memberships. So, wow.
Yeah, which was literally a stone's throw from where we are today.
Yeah,
it's not so far at all. But I mean, that, from when we first met each other, obviously we've been in the sector for prior to that, for quite a time. But I was intrigued by your approach and your passion for sales and conveying a message. And I think subsequently, Keith, we've kept in touch over the years. And nowadays we're doing a lot more kind of collaborative work together.
Yeah. And I think that the funny thing for me is I've worked in so many different iterations of sales and selling, whether it's for health and fitness memberships, for personal training, so many different things. But I just enjoy communicating with people and helping them find a way forward. And I think that's one of the biggest things for me with stuff you believe in. Yeah. It comes across, and that's people tend to tell you what they need. They're there to kind of help them move forward, and that for me is just so important. You know?
100%. And I'd love to touch on that today. Actually, the key things from today's session is to translate all your knowledge and expertise into a personal trainer's world.
Sure.
So the three key elements that I'd like to pull on today are, first of all, setting goals and the importance around that. I think that will be quite insightful. Secondary to that, Keith, is how important is it to have a robust sales process? Yeah, for sure. As a PT. And then the third one, if I may, would be around objection handling.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Because we work in an industry where it's a numbers game, and sometimes you're going to have objections, sometimes false objections.
Yeah, absolutely.
So how to navigate them effectively, I think would be really helpful for our audience.
Yeah, fantastic. Some great areas to work on, and I'm looking forward to diving into these. So,
amazing.
Yeah.
So let's go back to the start then. So 2010, we get to know each other. Your personal training is part of YMSL. Yep. It's a division of YMSL. And you're running a division called Your Sales Solutions.
Absolutely.
Talk to us about that, Keith.
Yeah. So the basic thing is I'd had a background in sales for many a year. And I'd worked for organisations like Virgin Active back in the day and so on and so forth. And, looked after clubs, pre-sales, and had all sorts of wonderful experiences with them. And I was invited to work with Your Sales, which later on became mine. And part of what we did was help fitness facilities launch pre-sale, get a certain amount of members, train a team, train the staff, and just put in processes and systems to make sure that everyone got what they needed. We need this many thousand members. Okay, great. We'll help you do that, and here's how we're going to do it. And that was it. And the projects were phenomenal and so exciting because when we were starting, obviously, the one we're referring to here, Budget Gym, quite new at that particular time. And it was like, right, let's get cracking. How many thousand members do you want? Okay, we'll do it. Yeah. And that's how it all kind of started.
And fazed by that number as well, because you knew you had a robust strategy to deliver thousands of sales.
And I think this was the thing. It's when you see some numbers like that and you're looking at thinking, how many thousands? It's like, well, you start to break it down. Okay, so when do we open? How are we going to break it into little phases in terms of, well, what we're going to do is we've got no facilities to show. Yeah. We haven't got any graphics at the moment. We've got a building. We've got space. And it's basically in the nicest way. And it is. It's selling a dream or a concept of how we can help you and how much it's going to cost and what you can enjoy. And inviting people to buy into that and then tell their friends about how great it is. And, you look at where we are now with digital. There were online stuff where you could join online and you could do a virtual tour. But a lot of it was really come down to our empty building. We'll tell you what's coming. Yeah. And we're going to excite you enough to make you go, actually, I'd love some of that. Thank you. And
literally it, yeah.
And that was it.
So just visualising what the look and feel is going to be.
Yeah. And I think that the thing is when you're doing something like that, you've got to understand what that product's going to be about, but also you've got to understand what it's going to deliver in terms of service and what people are going to get from it, so that you're able to kind of listen to what people are currently experiencing in their facility and why they would choose to look at something different. And then you build an understanding of that, and then you're in a great position to say, well, here's how we can help you. Here's what we're going to be able to do. Here's what it's going to cost you. But you know what? We're going to get you from A to B and further on if you want. And it was just such a wonderful thing to be able to do.
Yeah. And you've impacted, many lives through that journey as well. But it starts from the front end, doesn't it? Getting that inspiration and that buy-in through your conviction. I think one of your personality traits, Keith, is that you convince people very well. And I think that's part of the puzzle with personal training, isn't it? To convey that image, that end kind of goal, so that you can put forward the best solutions.
Very much so. And I think one of the things, and it's going to sound funny, but I used to have so many people say, oh, you're an incredible salesperson. Actually, I'm really good at listening. And what I found, and the biggest process for me was, if I asked the right questions, people are going to tell me exactly what it is they're looking for, the pain points, what they need solved. And I'm in a position to say, well, here's how we can do that.
Yeah.
Here's what we can do to remedy that. And here's what you need to do to make it happen. And I think the bit for me was, it was always something I believed in, because I've always been active, I've always exercised. When people had uncertainties about doing it, it was like, well, yeah, absolutely, but you just told me you want to get fit for your holiday. You want to be in great shape for this massive event. So these are the steps, these are the things that you can do. And it was just a pleasure to help people go, yeah, I do want to do that, actually. Yeah, thank you. And
But you've established the why within that questioning process.
Yeah.
So that you've got that emotive subject to come back to, yeah?
And this is it. And the biggest thing for me is with anything, if you're trying to help somebody find something of value, you've got to establish why it is they want that. Generally speaking, with anything we want to achieve, there is going to be a why that drives you, whether it is something for you personally, whether it's something you want to help your friends with. But that why is what gets you up to go to the gym or to eat healthy or to work out in a way that's going to serve you. And once you can get people talking about their why, they feel comfortable taking the step. Yeah. And you're just helping them. And that's the thing for me. Sales and selling was always about helping people go from where they are to where they could be and where they wanted to be. Yeah. And not about adding another membership to the pile and not about making you another number. It was like, how can I help you today?
Yes.
And that's the mentality I've always tried to have.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Because it is a journey. And your career journey then, if you will, Keith, has now formed into you running your success solutions.
Absolutely. Yep.
So nowadays, what does that working life look like for you?
Wow. Well, what I have done, I won't say what I've tried to do, what I have done basically is take on all the things that I've enjoyed throughout my working career, my working life, and turn them into areas that I work in. So your sales is the first part of it, which is sales and systems and training and coaching people to feel comfortable doing what they're doing.
Yeah.
And to not feel funny about going through prices and inviting people to make a purchase. So your sales is a huge part of that. There's also your service, which is customer service delivery. And for me, the two intertwine beautifully because you can't make a sale till you provide the service. And so many people try and skip that area and just go straight for the money. So that's a big thing for me is how do you deliver the right service? How do you deliver a customer experience so people continue to come and become raving fans and refer their friends? But then what it's also broken into as well is the coaching side, your life coach. I've always had people around me at key moments in my life to be able to say, have you thought about, have you done? And the ability to be able to share some of my experience with people and not to tell them what to do, but to get them to ask better questions of themselves in terms of where am I going, what do I want? So they make choices and decisions that serve them. Is something that I just really enjoy and passionate about. And then the other part of it is your motivation. We're all motivated by something. And if you can understand what motivates you, you can move in that direction rather than just kind of going, what makes me happy?
Yeah.
And the happier, more fulfilled you are in what you do, guess what? You can love it, enjoy it, make a life from it, which is what I've tried to do. So those are the 4 areas I've always been passionate and happy with. And it's like, how can I help people in those areas and continue to enjoy what I do? And that's where I am with your success.
Absolutely. And what sort of markets do you target, Keith? Do you work with individuals, corporates? Wow. How does that look?
It's an interesting one. for me, there's a lot of one-to-one work that goes on the coaching side. But then what that does is it breaks into sometimes small groups, people with similar needs. And then every now and again, you get the opportunity to work with an organisation where you're working with hundreds of people in one room, presentations, coaching, those kind of bits and pieces. And for me, what tends to happen is you tend to work with a group, and then someone from that goes, actually, do you know what? I need to go something more specific. I wonder if this guy does personal work. And then you get the joy of taking people from along a journey, basically. And that, for me, is what it's all about, is helping people. Because I think this is the thing with coaching. People think, as a coach, you have all the answers. What I've got is all the questions. The answers are for them, because it has to be their responsibility, rather than saying, you told us. I never tell you what to do. I say, what do you think? What would you do? How do you feel about that? So they're answering those questions and going, actually, here's what I need to do and here's where I need to be. And if you think about sales, service, motivation, coaching, it's all the same thing. Asking better questions of yourself so you can help the people that are around you. You know?
I love the way you put that, actually. And I think you've got a good eye for detail, and you can spot gaps. Yeah. In terms of where a skill set might falter, or a personality trait might falter. You've been heavily involved, Keith, for the last 18 months or so with Level Up.
Oh, yeah.
Which is our kind of concept, our workshops where we help to level up fitness professionals across the UK. Now, you've probably delivered that to hundreds of personal trainers now through our schedule. Are there any common traits or common gaps that you tend to see within the personal training community?
That is such a good question. Yeah, and they can vary from person to person, but the bits you tend to see is there's the whole wonderful build-up in terms of I feel comfortable inviting people to come and talk to me or have a taster session. But then when it comes to asking for money, either the process is rushed, it becomes uncomfortable, or you've not added enough value. And the biggest bit that often comes for me is the belief in what you're offering. And there's something I always ask people to do when they're offering a service. It's like, okay, what is it you offer? Why do people want it? And what are you creating for them in terms of outcomes? And generally speaking, when you start to get your head round, actually it's a life-changing service. I'm going to help somebody feel great about themselves. It's impossible not to feel positive about the change that you make. Yeah. And then in the nicest possible way, when you're inviting someone to do that with you and pay you to help them with that, it's not an issue. Yeah. This is what you want. This is what you need. And I can provide that for you. You've been struggling by yourself. Let me guide you. But a lot of it comes down to the belief in what you're offering. That for me is the biggest thing. And then when you start to then add it into sales process steps, it all connects. And often a sales process without that belief, it comes across. Yeah, because people go, well, you don't feel too sure about it, so why am I buying this from you?
100%, yeah. And I think customers or clients would feel that. They would feel that emotion. They would feel that, transcending across in that dialogue where you're trying to offer a package solution. So, yeah, I don't disagree with that. I think that is a common skills gap that personal trainers can develop and harness. And some are really good. Yeah. But the majority of PTs are not salespeople. We come from a place of kind of want and desire to help someone, but we're not great at asking for the money sometimes.
Yeah, and I think there's conversations I have with people within the group with Level Up, and then sometimes there's those that come up to me afterwards or work with me afterwards and do some one-to-one work. And the bit we very often kind of talk about is those steps and listening and the belief side of things. And it's really about, and this is the thing, it's the trust that you're trying to build with people and the experience you're delivering. And you have to show that you want to help. Yeah. And if you can demonstrate that, then people feel more comfortable. And that's the biggest thing, so that's for sure.
Makes sense. Makes sense. We'll come back to this bit. Okay. So this is encroaching on the building a robust sales process. But let's take a moment, Keith, just to look at the starting point, the setting the goals element. And if we can relate this to personal trainers for sure setting business goals, what's the important considerations?
Well, this is always a great part of the conversation because it always starts with, I need to recruit clients. Fantastic. Okay. So the biggest starting point is always going to be, again, where are you now? How much are you earning and so on? Great. How much do I need to earn? Whether that's to, and I think it's been picked up before, but how much you need to earn to pay your bills and how much you need to earn to kind of create the lifestyle that you want. And you start to get your earnings figure. You then translate that into, right, well, how many people does that transpire to in terms of clients? What am I charging? What's my price points? You start to set those bigger goals. And then all of a sudden you start to think of the work back. What's the process? So how many sessions do I need to deliver a week? But to do that, how many people do I need to connect with? How many sessions do I need to deliver tasters? And very often that's a question you can't necessarily answer because you haven't got the experience straight away as a new PT or someone that's starting out. But then all of a sudden it's like, right, go talk to people. Go learn this stuff. I know how much I need to earn. Let me see, and how many clients I need to get. Let me go out and start talking to people now. So for me, and I think people will talk about it as well, it is a numbers game. You have to go out there and use your time accordingly. So when you're setting goals, you can start to look, well, if I need to speak to 20 people today, what does my time look like? And if I need to then follow those people up, how does it work? But the idea basically has to be is starting point, finishing point, and you can start to fill the gaps in between. So when you wake up each day, you've got here's my action plan. Now, that on its own is great, but the bit that misses sometimes, you can have the most robust strategy. You can have all your SMART goals left out in terms of, how long it's going to take and when I want to earn it by and so on. But you've then got to have the mental energy to pull it off. And this goes back to that why question. When people talk to me about their earnings and what they want to get as a personal trainer, say, brilliant, there's your earnings. This is what why? What are you going to do with this money? What does your life look like? How do you want to do it? And you have to build a why that feels compelling, something that's going to get you out of bed in the morning. So those days when you wake up at 6 and go, why? It kicks in, you go, oh, why? Here it is. It's because this is going to be part of my life. This is what I'm going to be able to provide for myself. And this is going to... Once you've got that, you've got the building of mental energy to get you from where you are to where you want to be. And I would say sometimes people miss that step because I've got my strategy, but I'm falling short of it. And it's like, well, maybe the energy's not quite there. What is your reason to do it? And once you've got that, you're unstoppable.
I think that's a really interesting point. And I think personal trainers fall into the category of not dreaming big enough sometimes. So, like, for example, we'll have situations where we got a new PT starting within your PT, and we'll talk about their why. We'll talk about the short-term goals. And they'll say something like, I want to make enough to cover my rent. And we're like, oh... That's fine.
Lovely starting point.
Yeah, that's a great starting point. But that's very basic. That should be a given. Let's think bigger. Let's think bolder, because there's huge opportunities on the table here that we're not pursuing because we're not thinking laterally. So I think sometimes there's a case to actually think bigger and believe that we can achieve higher.
And I think it's that thing is if you're focusing on earning enough to pay your rent and pay your bills, brilliant, but that's your focus and that's where you're going to get. It's almost like a seal. That's your comfort zone. And it's that whole thing. Mentally, we kind of put a block there. As long as I'm doing that, I'm doing all right. But then when you challenge yourself and you go, well, actually, my bigger goal is X, all of a sudden you start to push yourself through your comfort zone. And very often, and I found it, and I'm sure there's a lot of people you've spoken to and have come across, once that seal is there, it holds you back. But when you start to push it a bit more, you suddenly go, what else can I achieve? Next step. And your comfort zone continues to get stretched. And that's when you grow and you learn and you just go, well, there's nothing holding me back other than me. That's the thing.
And we practice this as personal trainers by inspiring our clients,
don't
we?
It. We're living it.
Very similar process here. It's a very similar psychology methodology as well, because you sort of... what you've explained there, Keith, is like the bridge model, isn't it? So you've got your current situation, your desired situation, and then your solutions to achieve it. But that's a really great example. And if we strip it back and we take basic facts and figures, if I'm a PT and I'm saying I want 10 clients, going back to what you said earlier, you're pretty much working out how many complementary sessions you need to deliver your 10 clients. So let's say it's a 1-in-2 ratio. I need to do 20 complementaries to get 10 clients. And then you take it a level back. How many people do I need to communicate with to get those complimentaries, to get the paid sessions.
And it works so well because the thing is, what it provides you with basically is a working process. You know each day what you need to deliver. And there's that whole thing about waking up and knowing what your steps are.
Yeah.
If you wake up and go, what am I doing today? And you haven't got an answer to that, that's probably the result that you're going to get is question marks and trying to make it happen. When you wake up and say, what am I doing today? Well, okay, for my first hour, I'm doing X. Then I'm going to do Then I'm going to do Y. The idea basically is you just build a model for success. And then the more you understand it, go, well, here's what I need to do to achieve. You can apply it. And if it doesn't go to plan, brilliant. I've worked maybe 1, 2, or even 3 ways that I need to adjust and get better. And all of a sudden you're creating your own roadmap for success. And there's so many wonderful people that you can follow that have been successful, but the route that you take might need to be slightly different.
Yeah.
So take the experiences, take the lessons, but then apply it to what you're doing.
Yeah, 100%.
You grow yourself then.
Just to add another layer on there, good to get your view on this. So when personal trainers have established their optimal sort of client bank, face-to-face personal training often has quite a high length of stay. We kind of keep our members within our ecosystem for a long period of time. And their goals change as well, Keith. Like you mentioned earlier, you might have achieved, a set weight loss target, but then the goal has changed to running a marathon. So you adapt as a fitness professional along that journey. There's inevitably drop-off with clients along that cycle. So having something... a funneling process, I guess, is going to be important.
The thing for me, and there's so many films and movies you could go back to, always be selling on all those bits and pieces. But the idea for me is we know the challenges that we have. And, I'm not directly working in personal training now. However, I have to take on a personal trainer mentality as I coach, which basically means I will have people achieve their goals, change their goals, or maybe circumstances change and they move, leave, or whatever. So for me, I still need to be looking for clients. So I'm still asking for referrals. I'm still putting the notes out there. I'm still attending events and networking and so on so that I'm able to fill that back off. So I'm always... got a bank of people that I could say, hey, great, let's book you in for a taster, let's get you booked in. And all of a sudden I know that potentially I've got maybe 1 or 2 that are changing circumstances, but I've got a few new ones coming in. So you have to be consistently looking. And even if you're at a point where you're thinking, well, actually, I've got enough clients now. What can you do to maintain? Is there anything that you can do online, newsletters? So you've always got a bank of people that you can stay in touch with. For me, and this is what I found with coaching and from working with personal trainers, your best way to continue to grow your business is through referrals.
Yeah.
And if you've got clients who are enjoying what they do, there's every possibility that satisfied client, that happy customer is going to be able to turn around and say to you, oh, actually, I've got a mate. He would love to work with you. I've been telling him all about you. And in the nicest possible way, that process would be a lot easier because they've heard great things about you.
Yeah.
Their friend is not going to say, go and see James, he's awful. They're going to say, go and see James, he's fantastic, he's changed my life. And it's, wow, okay, I need this guy in my life. So those referrals basically become your next bank of customers, loyal customers who value what you do and aren't questioning what your charges are because they know their mate's getting results and they're paying it, so it's worth it.
Yeah.
But you have to keep looking. Whether you are face-to-face on the gym floor, connecting with people, giving tips, just being seen and talking makes you approachable. And I know for myself, there's times when I go and deliver to a group and someone goes, oh, I've got a question for you. The minute somebody asks that, that is their way of saying, I need a bit more help. Can you deliver something personally to me? And it gives you the opportunity to just kind of go, great, what is it you need? Yeah. And that will grow into a now client or a future connection. And the funny thing is, you said about how long we've known each other, since 2010. There's people I've done work for in 2009, 2011, and 2018 or 2020 or even 2024. So I said, you did that work with us. I've been promoted now. Could you come and do that for my team? And it's staying in touch with those people through various channels, whether it's socially, digitally. But staying in touch with people and letting them know that you're there and you're interested in how they're getting on makes a huge difference.
You touched on a really good point there, Keith, around like community engagement as well. So you're used to dealing with large audiences, and then you're pulling out individual conversations from those audiences. Similarly, with personal training, you might do a walk, or you might do a running club or a nutrition seminar, and then have those one-to-one conversations, but always planting the seed that you're a good guy, you're there for the clients, you achieve fantastic results, and you're part of a community when you're involved in your services.
And I think the bit that you get with that is not only you connecting with people, but you're showcasing your skills and your passions. And if there's something that you believe in and something that you know you can share, then what's going to happen? Those people attending are going to see it and go, oh my gosh, this isn't just a presentation. This is something this person lives and breathes. I want to know more because I'm feeling that connection. So if there are events and seminars and bits and pieces you can do, it's worth it every single time. And very often I have conversations with people and say, oh, but that's a lot of time and I'm not getting paid for it.
Yeah.
To begin with, not. But the payoff basically isn't on the day. It's on the future connection, the future business where people go, oh, it's not for me now, but in 3 months' time or in a month's time. But what you're building is a database of people you can, get on your social channels, newsletters, whatever it happens to be. So they're instantly going, I need to talk to this guy.
Yeah.
And that's the important bit.
Yeah, I think there's something to be said for playing the long game in all these situations.
Yeah, and I think this is the thing. Very often we kind of overestimate what we can achieve in a short period of time and underestimate what we can achieve in 6 months, a year, because it has to be done now. And I don't know whether it's a generational thing, but there's that whole thing about instant result. You see it in so many different walks of life. But you will get some quick wins. But what you're after basically is building longevity. So I'm going to get my first line of clients coming in, which is good, but I'm also building for the next 6 months, a year, 2 years, because I know I'm going to get bigger, better, and greater. Yeah. But I've got to put the work in now. And the long game is certainly part of it, because you are constantly then building connections and potential clients that are going to want to come in and work with you. And that has to be done. Yeah. There's no way around it, that's for sure.
Amazing. It's clear that goal setting is paramount. If you're running a business, particularly a personal training, self-employed driven business, you've got to have robust kind of goals and a blueprint to achieve them. So let's look at sales. Building a robust sales process. Your face lit up then, Keith.
This is the nice bit. And I think the bit that sometimes happens with sales process is people see it as, we've all had those experiences where somebody rings up our phone, do you want a better deal on this? Do you want a better deal on that? And for us, that feels like sales, and say, I don't want to be that person. The great news is, within personal training, you are not that person. You are there to help people deliver dreams. And I said, the first thing is you've got to realize that sales is actually a very nice process. It's a wonderful conversation between two people, one who wants to achieve something and wants to pay for it, and the other one who can accept the payment and help them. There doesn't need to be any fear in there. But for me, the first part of a sales process is really kind of thinking about what you're going to ask the client and really understanding how you can help them and what pain they're feeling. And I know when we do Level Up, I talk to it in terms of doctor psychology. What is it? Everybody that you talk to is going to have some kind of pain or ailment. And your thing is going to be, well, what am I going to prescribe to help that? And if you're in a position where you're asking, to begin with, right open questions, what is it you're looking to achieve? Why? What's the goal? How long you've got to do it, and so on. What's your exercise experience? The more open questions you can ask, people then start to give you a phenomenal amount of information about where they're going, what's been a block, what stops them achieving their goals. And you can have this whole wonderful conversation. And they are basically telling you what it is they need. So you're able to say, well, here's how we can solve those things for you. So you've got to be in a position to ask the right questions. But then the bit you've got to switch on to is then being able to listen. And the biggest skill for me with listening is you're going to know the answer pretty quickly. And your enthusiasm to get to the next stage is going to go, let them tell you everything, but take on board all the information that you need. It's very easy to interrupt somebody when they're on a wonderful train of thought and they're going somewhere and they're telling you all the reasons. The minute you stop that flow, you take away all the power that you're giving them to tell you what it is they want. So listening is so important, because you can then pick out the bits that are going to say, well, you mentioned you've been struggling with time. What kind of times are we looking for? Because I work these hours. And you said you've not been able to get any further than this. Here's what I'm going to suggest that we do to help you get there. And they go, oh my gosh, it's like you're made for me. And it's like, well, I am, because you've told me what you need.
Yeah.
And I'm happy to be able to supply that. So asking the right questions and listening means you can direct the conversation around who they are and what they want. But what you're also doing for me is you are taking away any potential uncertainties they have, or even removing objections and uncertainties. Because the biggest thing for me, I know we'll get to it, when people have an uncertainty or an objection, it's because you've not satisfied something. There's a doubt in their mind. So can you remove the doubts in a conversation like this? Because it's not a sales process. This is me and you talking. And I just want to hear everything about you so I can give you all that you need. Once you've established that, then you're then in a phase of, let me show you what we can do. You said 6 months. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to meet once a week, twice a week. This is what I'm going to suggest for you. And here's what we're going to work on. Here's your first phase. And what you're doing, this is that whole thing again about longevity, whether people are paying in full or by direct debit. You're creating a view that basically says, look, this ain't, and that thing we talk about quick fixes. It's a long game. Here's what you're going to need to achieve that. So they're under no illusions from the start about what they're getting. So you're removing that barrier of continuing. So you're able to build like a process, but then what happens is you're able then to put in your value proposition, what you get, and then ultimately the charges. Yeah. And very often the bit that people are fearful of when delivering prices is it's going to sound expensive and so on. And we put this picture in our head about expensive means. We have no idea what's going through that customer's mind. So let them decide. But if you put up, I'm sorry to say we charge, and I hear this a lot, I'm ever so sorry to say I charge this. The minute you apologize for what you're charging, I'm going to hold back. You're apologizing? Okay, well, maybe it's worse than I thought. So you have to be in a position where you not only deliver with confidence, but you deliver with options. Yeah. So it might be like, if you want to buy a block, it's this much. If you prefer, there's a direct debit, which works this way. And for me, because you've been having this consultative conversation, one of the best things you can do is say, well, we've got pay in full or we've got direct debit. Which would be better for you? Yeah. And I've not asked you to part with any money at this point, but what I've asked you is, which would be better for you? Well, I'm comfortable with direct debit. Great. Well, let's do it then. Because hopefully during this conversation, you've talked to them about start dates. Well, I want to start from Monday. Great. So great. Well, you like direct debit. Let's get you started. We're booked in for Monday. Off we go. So now you're not, and this is the whole thing, you're never making somebody buy from you, but you're giving them reasons to want to do it. And I've spent years looking at this because my wife loves to buy. She hates to be sold to. But if you can create a compelling reason for her to make a purchase and do the add-ons that go with it to get the very best look or the very best result, then she's loving it. Yeah. But it all comes from understanding who's this person with me, what do they need, how can I help them, what's the solution they want, and then go, here it is, here's how much it costs. You said you want to start Monday. Let's do this.
Simple as that.
Yeah.
Yeah. You've got to be careful as well. The wife might listen to this. So
she's heard this story before. I often represent. Do you know that when I talk about sales, she's like, yes, it's fine. So it's valuable experience. Yeah. That's for sure. But that for me is a wonderful sales process, and you can both enjoy the conversation. And it's just a way of making sure that people know what they're getting. You're removing barriers, and if you're asking things about, how often do you work out and so on and so forth, and what stops you coming, you can remove all those barriers. So when it comes to the point, shall we get you started? There's no kind of, it's like, yeah, absolutely.
It should be a natural process.
I'm ready to go now. Yeah, that's for sure.
And what I've got from that, Keith, is it should be a very slick, consultative process, and a very smooth transition into having that conversation. But there's in my mind, there's always three key aspects to the sales journey of a personal trainer. You've had a positive interaction with someone in the gym. You've offered them a complimentary session. Yeah. So, I'll go to my grave saying that is the best way of managing this process, because it is a two-way street as well. Yeah. So you've got to be sure that you can work with that individual. And I've come and stuck with this when I was delivering PT, a really bad personality that I had to shake off. And that presents a really difficult conversation. So your consultation process should be two ways. They've got to be confident in you. Yeah. You've got to be comfortable with them. But then when you get to the consultation, it's normally the fact finding, which you said earlier, finding out the why, finding out any injuries or any conditions that you might need to be aware of, limitations. Then you go into, and that's quite an easy structured process, just Q&A, Then you go into a structured physical aspect, which is normally, wow, personal trainers are brilliant at this, showcasing their skills in a physical aspect. So you might have some performance related kind of techniques. You might have some functional training in there. You might have some time challenges in there, but ultimately you're going to have a fun experience with a personal trainer, which is the physical. And then you come to stage 3. That's the sales part. And that is normally where personal trainers can come unstuck and they start communicating things like, maybe, apologies, I'm selling something here. And my toes curl. When you hear that sort of terminology, you're putting yourself on the back foot straight away. So when it comes to that part, are there any key tips there, Keith, of questioning? You mentioned earlier about going back to their why.
Yeah.
How do you connect the dots at the end?
Yeah, I think it's that whole thing. The reason you go through the process of understanding their whys and any restrictions, what they want to achieve and so on, is because what you're able to do is, if there is an uncertainty, you can go back to it and say, well, you mentioned about coming twice a week. And you mentioned it's really important you achieve this goal. You can do that. But the thing that's really important when you get to that sales process, that part at the end there where you're asking for money and language. Very often what we miss sometimes is the positive phrases that make people feel comfortable and confident. Sometimes people talk about pricing. You can talk about investment, for example. That sounds corny, but it's true. You're investing in your health.
Yes.
And you can't put a price on that. But also the whole thing about, apologizing. Sorry, I have to charge this, or sorry, we have to do it this way. It's like, the minute you put a sorry in there, you're putting up potential barriers, making people think twice. So think about your language, making it as positive, as useful as possible. One tip I always give, and this is where your listening can be useful, if there is a word or phrase that potential client is using, use it for them, because what happens is people tend to buy into people as well. And what you tend to find is if there's a word or phrase, I'm excited, I'm ready, I can't wait. If you put those phrases into your conversation, people are more likely to feel, actually, do you know what, this is a like-minded person. And what you mentioned there about connection and personalities and being able to work together makes such a massive difference. And again, what you're doing is you've delivered a great conversation, you've delivered a wonderful taster where that person can see you know your stuff and you're helpful. And then the final bit, really and truthfully, is just going, here's what you told me, here's what we've done, here's what we're going to do next. And for me, that next step is always the important one. And there's a reason for that. Very often, people miss the connection to commit to the next step, which leaves them going, I'm really excited about this. And in that moment of energy and excitement, that's when you need to go, so here's the next thing we're going to do. I'm going to get you booked in. When people miss that step, that commitment then goes from a level of excitement to, I've cooled off a little bit, I enjoyed it, do I want to spend the money, to I'm now sitting on the fence.
Yeah.
Whereas what I want to do with you, when you're in optimum excitement, say, do you know, I've absolutely loved this session. You ask questions like, how was it for you? Did you enjoy it? Could you see yourself doing this again? So you go from open questions to like your closed-ended questions, yes and no. So it's like, could you see yourself using this again? Yes. Fantastic. I know I'm a good step. Did you enjoy today? I loved it. Positive reinforcement. And if you turn around and say, would you like to book your next session? Well, I'm not too sure. Barrier. Okay, great. What time scale are you looking at? What day would be good for you? I know you said you want to start on Tuesday next week. Oh, yeah, I did. Reminders. But what you're doing is basically filling in that next step for people. So for me, when you've gone through this wonderful process of open questions, conversation, you're then in a situation where you're asking some closed questions.
Yeah.
Did you enjoy it? How could you see yourself doing this on a regular basis? All those bits and pieces get people to give you positive yes, yes. So when you then get along the chain to be able to say, shall we get you booked in? The likely answer is going to be yeah, because that's been my answers all the way along. Yeah. And if I've given you an uncertainty, like I'm not sure or I need to ask some more, great. Very often, and I know we'll come to this in more depth, but handling an objection or an uncertainty is more of people have got a request for more information. I've missed something. So do I go back to what we've talked about, or do I need to ask another question that just helps me with that? But very often this is a moment with personal trainers where you go into a bit of not a panic mode, but a bit of a, I've done all this groundwork. Now they've said no. What do I do? And it's like, it's not over. There's still a conversation
the battle
here.
Still goes on. Yeah.
And I think if you are doing timeshare sales, forgive me, anyone who's in timeshare, it's a slightly different process. When you are selling health and well-being, generally speaking, the people that are with you are there because they want to.
Yeah.
So when you've had this wonderful conversation, understanding their needs, their goals, their barriers, all the bits that have built them up to this particular moment in terms of why they're here with you today, that conversation is a rapport that you've built up, which allows you to ask, what can I do to help you get started? What's missing? What can we do? And making suggestions. If you just go through a straight, right, I'm selling to you, I'm not going to listen to you, here's the prices, here's the booking we're going to do, you haven't got that relationship.
It's too mechanical, isn't it?
Yeah,
I think.
absolutely.
And I think that's brilliantly put. And you mentioned something in there, Keith, just to come back to, about matching terminology.
Yeah.
So terminology phrases that the client is projecting to match that. So that's like mirror matching, yeah?
Yeah, and you know, this is a whole other phase you can get into in sales and selling. You basically, it's that whole thing. If you've got someone who's a little bit shy and you're excited and you're motivated and you're in their face, you're going to scare them to death. If you pick up on words or phrases that people use, or if you pick up on how they hold themselves, the way they talk in terms of tone and volume, if you can match that for the first part of your conversation, then there is a subconscious link and connection, unspoken rapport, if you like. When you're in a situation where you've been talking to them for a little while, you can start to see, are they coming with me? So do I now talk a little bit faster? Do I lean into the conversation? Do I move my body in a slightly different way?
Yeah.
And what you find is if they copy you, that connection is there, so they're more likely to build in a level of trust and respect because they're like, actually, like-minded person. I really like James because he's like me. And if you can make those observations, and they're subtle little things, but they make a huge difference. So how they hold themselves, how they sit, the words or phrases that they use, if you use any of that, then generally speaking, people go, James gets me. And it's a nice way to move forward, that's for sure.
And going back to my point earlier, I suppose that gives you the assurance then that it's a good partnership there, that you can work together.
Yeah, and I think this is the whole thing. Is there's always a school of thought, and I've heard people talk about this, as long as they're paying, it's great, I'll make it work. But both of you tend to have like a little bit of opposition. Even if it's unspoken, you notice it, and you don't necessarily find that's an ongoing relationship. And I know with anything that I do, if someone says to me, I want to work with you, I was like, great, we're doing a 30-minute taster, but I just want to pay for it. Great, we're going to do a 30-minute taster because I want to make sure you like me. As anything else, this has been a great starting point, but let's make sure that over 30 minutes or longer, we are going to connect, we're going to feel good about each other, and you want to work with me on an ongoing basis. Yeah. And I'll insist on that because, okay, I could go into it and say, let's just take the money. But if I do that, then I haven't got an ongoing relationship. Yeah. And I have to make sure that's of paramount importance to me and the person I'm trying to help. That's how we get the best results.
You're setting off on a journey and you're getting off on the right foot, aren't you? So
absolutely.
That makes perfect sense. The bit now to touch on is objection handling. So, it can be scary sometimes to connect the dots, provide your solution, and ask and give the financial investment, as you correctly put it earlier, Keith. What if someone says no? How do you get over that and use that to a positive effect in your business?
Run fast, run free, get away from the situation. No, I'm joking. I think it's that whole thing is when you hear a no, don't take that as that's it, done, step away, thanks very much for your time, and get away with it. The only way you get to, for both people, yourself and the client, is to understand where that no's coming from. And if you have, and I'm hoping you would at this time, taken time to understand that person, who they are, what they need, why they're with you today, when you hear a no, it's like, okay, no problem at all, great. So what's made you think that? What's holding you back? What have we missed today? And allow them the opportunity to tell you, well, what is that no? Is it price? Is it time? Is it confidence? And this is the thing, unless you understand what that no actually is, you can't provide a solution. And very often there's that thing, you hear a no and people will go, right, I've got my ace up my sleeve. There is some added value that I'm going to offer to this, or I'm going to give them an extra session or whatever it is. And they'll offer these incentives without actually knowing what it is the uncertainty is. So the uncertainty is still not handled. You're now giving me an offer, but that's not what I want. It's not financial, it's something else. So for me, it's first of all is understanding what's missing. So okay, we've talked, and you go back to your conversation. I know you've talked about your goal and wanting to achieve it, why it's important, when you want to achieve it by, when you want to start. Brilliant. So what's holding you back today? What have we missed? What can I help you with? And it has to be, I want to help you.
Yeah.
And a big percent, I would probably say 90% of the time, there'll be a 10% that just won't share that. But 90% of the time, there'll be someone that comes to you and says, well, do you know what? It's a bit more than I was expecting. Okay, great. What were you expecting to pay? And if you've done your homework beforehand, you can break down what your cost is per session. And I'm not going to say it's guaranteed, but 95% of the time, the uncertainty on price, there is generally speaking a £5 to £6 difference. Sometimes it's a bit more, but generally speaking, it's £5 to £6. So how do you break down £5 or £6? So you're thinking 30, they want 30. They're thinking 30, you want to charge 35. Does it get more cost effective if they buy a block, or do you simply go, okay, so we're looking at £5 a session here to get ready for X amount of weight loss and so on and so forth. And you go into, I completely get it. We're all watching what we spend. But the way I like to think about it is if you're working out and you're fit and healthy with me, maybe you have one less coffee. Maybe you have one less glass of wine. Maybe one less beer. All of a sudden, there's your £5. So it's relating it back to everyday activities and events. If it's time, what I tend to find is time is often a cover for the financial side. So you're back to money again. Or if it really is time, you can go through a whole thing. Okay, so when do you use the gym? When do you work out? When do you come and work out? Well, let's see if we can balance our visits around there. And maybe we start with one visit a week and move up to twice a week, as you see. But the idea basically is work with the person. Every single time you identify what that uncertainty is, what's the solution you can provide? It's back to that doctor mentality again.
Prescribing.
I'm prescribing. Yeah. I'm not telling you, but, and this is the thing I find sometimes as a coach, people will come to me and say, I've tried everything to get my results. And generally speaking, you ask them what they've tried and it's 2 or 3 things. So what you're doing with this is getting past those 2 or 3 things and say, well, how do we work on your time? How do we work on the money you want to spend? How do we work on talking to your partner? Partner's a big one, because there's maybe a joint cost in there. So, partner one is like, okay, so have you spoken to your partner about this? Are they supportive? Well, they really want me to do this. Great. Yeah. So let's go for it then.
It's a classic, isn't it? Blame the partner.
Absolutely.
I'm not ready to commit.
This is it.
In terms of that, if a PT finds himself in a position where they've had a no, in your experience, Keith, is there like an optimal time to recontact that person? So I think from my experience, going back to that phased approach of PT, you've shown them the blueprint of how they can achieve success. You've given a fantastic experience in the gym and convinced them that is the way to work. I never work out at that intensity. I know that's going to help me improve my outcomes. And then they might have said no, purely, it's normally financial, So they've said no and they've tried to do it themselves. And they've gone on this journey of exploration and probably failed because they haven't been able to replicate the intensity and the benefits of that initial workout. So in your experience, and there might be some psychology in this as well, is there kind of an optimum time to get back in contact? Yeah,
and I think what you do is with that is you actually inform that person that you're talking to what that contact's going to look like.
Nice.
If, for example, I know from previous experiences, whether it's working with health and fitness or whether I've had a trial session for someone with me, I'll always say the same thing. It's like, well, I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
What I'd like to do, if it's okay, is I'm going to drop you a message in 24 hours. It's merely to say thank you and see if there's any other questions that have come up. And then what I'm going to do after that is I will just send you a heads up once every couple of weeks, see how things are going. And if there's any questions that you've got or even any information I can supply you to help you with what you're doing, we'll do it. But what I find is if you can follow up immediately in terms of here's what's going to happen. One, people are expecting it. It's not like, oh my gosh, I'm going to get bombarded. It's like, here's a journey. And I try, well, I don't even try, I do. If someone has a session with me, within 24 hours, it'll be, do you know what? Really enjoyed meeting you yesterday. Thank you so much. If there's anything I can help with, please come and see me. If I see you in the gym, I'll come and see you. But what I'll do is I'm going to drop you a note in a couple of weeks, see how you're getting on towards achieving X. Yeah. So it's specific to that person because the likelihood, in my experiences, in 2 weeks' time, they'll be like no further along thinking, oh my gosh. So that those follow-on, those emails come and I go, can we get started now? Of course we can.
Yeah.
And that's why, for me, it's important that you do that. And maybe you get to a point where you've contacted them within 2 weeks and a month and there's been no reply. So invite them to join your mailing list, your social media channels, and you're just having connection. So whenever you see them, it's not funny to go, hey, James, how you doing? How you getting on? Not so good, actually. Well, I'm still here if you need me. Okay. And the likelihood they'll go, let's...
I think it's something to be said for the follow-up element and that lead into an eventual sale. So when we say it's not no forever.
Absolutely.
But what you've said there, Keith, is you've set clear boundaries and an expectation that you'll deliver on what you do. So you've followed up after 24 hours. And you've kind of, I guess, given them a little bit of rope to, go crack on, keep doing your thing. I'm going to touch base in 2 weeks. At that point, they're probably dissatisfied with their results because they've tried to adopt and they haven't quite ached as much as they did in that session.
And I think this is where, what I said at the very start, service and sales are heavily connected. So if you're promising to deliver something without them paying and they're like, flipping heck, how good is this person going to be with me if I am a client? And I'm not getting all these little insights. But I just think if people know what's coming, as well as I do, the experience they have working out by themselves is not going to come anywhere near to what they've just experienced. And they'll be like, and they will try and remember what's been done. But, did I set it here? Was this the right way? Is this all those questions go through their mind. And when you touch base with them, you're reminding them of potentially what they're missing. And it's like, what I need to do is I need to find a way. But it also means if they know that you're going to connect with them, if you see them in person, it's not a weird, I want to be bubbly and, hi, how you doing? It doesn't matter you didn't sign up with me. I still want to help you when you're ready at some point.
Yes,
so
yes.
You remove
and nowadays as well with technology, it's so easy to invite them to a WhatsApp group or a Facebook group and give them the VIP experience, albeit they're not having the full immersive experience. Do you know what I mean? So it's kind of a window of opportunity just to see what goes on in this world.
And staying connected, that's the thing. And the more connected people are to you, the more likely they are to, it just keeps you in mind. And they're like, do you know what? I know it was a month ago.
Yeah.
Can you still help me? Of course you can. Yeah, absolutely. Let's have a look at the diary. Come on. But it's just that whole thing about you're creating an experience where, and this is the way, live what you want to be. So if you want to be helpful, positive, solution finder, you've got to be that 24/7. You have to live it. You have to breathe it. You have to be consistent with people. So they're feeling, no matter whether I'm working with this person or not, they're nice to me. It's so refreshing. And I've got to be honest, and you may have a different experience from me. Very often when you work in any service industry or you go to a restaurant, that service level isn't always there. It's like they're doing you a favour. For me, one of the biggest things in terms of success is what can you offer that's over above what I was expecting? And it doesn't have to be massive going the extra mile. It's the extra step. Yeah. What makes you stand out and go, oh, wow, I wasn't expecting that. And there it is. Yeah. So, do something
because we ultimately are in the service game, aren't we? So those little attentions to detail, they matter. They make a heck of a difference.
Very much so. Yeah.
Love the insight there, Keith. That's fantastic. So that's objection handling. So we should be able to navigate those no's if and when they come about. But going back to the numbers game, you can probably accelerate your business kind of projected outcome by nailing this part, by making sure the sales process is robust. Yeah. You handle objections effectively. And you keep your audience abreast of the situation, updated with information, and give them the sense of belonging to your community.
Very much so. And I think this is one of the things, you could go into this, you could feel like a whole another hour in terms of stats and ratios and things to look for. But the thing for me is learning what it does. Well, if you want to get a particular result, what is it? Ratios, you could argue there's no good or bad, and I'll explain what I mean by that. Is if, for example, you, see 4 people, but only one of them buys. Some people look at it, it's terrible. But I'm phenomenal at getting 16, 20, 30, 35, 40 people in front of me to do those. Yeah. So if that's my strength and I can do it, wonderful. The bit you can then ask yourself is, can I improve? Do I want to improve? Because if I want to improve, what am I going to do? When I do my presentations, what do I do well? Is there a gap that I can improve? So that those ratios, we all look at ratios, but what do they actually mean? And it's like, there's my stats. Great. What are you going to do with them? Yeah. Are you going to live by them? Do you want to improve them? the choice is always yours. But if you can understand how much work you need to do to get a particular result, magic, you've cracked it.
Yeah.
You know?
It's a very true point, actually, because statistically, from our evidence, 1 in 5 is the conversion ratio of consultations to paid clients. So particularly in the early days, so for personal trainers in their first maybe 3 to 6 months of being in the industry, they're learning and they're sharpening their tools. So 1 to 5 is expected. So you have to do a lot more funneling in the early days. But as you develop and you harness your skill set, your conversion rates get better.
Yeah, and I mean, this is probably something that you've seen from experience, but certainly something I've noticed with personal trainers or anybody who sells. When you are in a situation where you're starting out fresh, a lot of your work and lead generation is people don't know you. When you're 3 months, 6 months, 12 months in, your leads have probably come a lot more from referrals. So that ratio in terms of connections to people working with you vastly improves because they already know about how great you are and the experience other people have had. So, it just says, well, if I want to get some clients, do I get better at asking for referrals and introductions? And do I need to put a scheme in place, or do I just need to ask more? It's that whole thing again. What do you do with the information? Where do my clients and customers come from so I can do more of what works or focus in an area where there's a gap?
Absolutely.
That's for sure.
Yeah, and it's exactly that. It's a gap analysis, isn't it? Finding out where the weak spots are. Mate, that's amazing. Last question.
Go for it.
We always like to give the guest the last word on the podcast episode. So what I'd like from yourself to finish things off today, Keith, is think about any resources. If we've got a personal trainer who wants to really dial up on their sales kind of skill set and their business acumen, in your wealth of experience within the sector, are there any resources or go-to kind of webinars or ebooks or?
It's an interesting one, and I hope you don't mind me talking about the things that your PT do. But the library and the catalogue of stuff you guys have got is absolutely insane. And I honestly think that is a great starting point there, because these are people that are working within the organisation that are sharing knowledge and experience. I also think one of the things that we underestimate sometimes, we look outside, and I'll talk about books and podcasts and webinars in a second, but we tend to look outside, whereas if you look at some of the success stories, or a lot of the success stories within your personal training who have built from the ground up, it's inspiring when you go to Level Up and you meet some of these guys on the panel who have basically gone from a zero business to security, and they've learnt that journey and they're instantly there. This is not something you've got to sign up to. This is not a podcast or a book. This is someone you say, what have you done? How did you do it? So they, for me, are some of the biggest things. But in terms of inspiration, as I said, I'm going to go right back to the beginnings of there are sales professionals you could go to. But for me, sales and success is what's up in here. And I think it's the stat. 80% of your success comes from what you tell yourself. 20% is then the action and the strategy you put in place. I honestly do think if there's anything that you can get your hands on or be involved in that's with Anthony Robbins, start there. Because what that tends to do is give you a focus for every single area of your life. What goes on in here is what translates, and the sales process, the steps, the communication is what counts. But I honestly, and I truly believe this, work from within your resource in terms of what you got, because the stuff that you put on, James, is just phenomenal. The Level Up, everything is just spot on, and it's there to get you from starting point to success and sustainability. And that for me is ideal.
Really, really appreciate that, Keith. You didn't have to say that. Really grateful. And from our perspective as well, we're ever so thankful for your input and your education to our personal training community, because you know what we stand for. We know we're trying to be the first and last words in personal training. And the buy-in is there because of experts like yourself that come to the table and share your wealth of expertise. So I'm really grateful for that. Were there any podcasts or webinars?
I'm going to say start with Anthony Robbins and go there and go in there.
Yeah.
then you can start to branch out and go further. You could go, I think the gentleman, Dean Grazioni, incredible in terms of sales, connected to Tony Robbins again. But I would say, look at your internal resources, look at Tony Robbins. They're your go-tos. Start there.
Love it. Go down that rabbit hole.
That's the one.
Keith, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. I've loved today's session. Thank you once again for all your input, your expertise. Look forward to continuing our relationship. And safe travels back, and we'll do this again soon.
Thank you for having me. Cheers, James.
Bosh.
There we go.
Mate.
Oh, that was lovely.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.